Thank you. Thank you very much. You are now tuned in to the Two-Getherness podcast and Rap with Dre. I am your host, Dre, and I do want to say I appreciate you all coming in to allowing me to come into your homes, on your tablets, on your phones, and your laptops, and having this time with you as we discuss relationships. The Two-Getherness podcast is about life, marriage, and family. And I really appreciate you guys because you could be doing anything else. And on Thursdays, you guys give me life, engaging with me on Facebook and get vocal and on YouTube. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. If you're listening on the podcast after we air live on Thursday nights, I really appreciate you guys. You guys have become a family. Your support allows me to continue going on. I thank you and I appreciate you very much. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching so far on Facebook. Thank you, Shannon, for tuning in on Get Vocal. We're going to get into this in a little bit, all right? Now, I have to say this disclaimer. I do not pretend to be a love expert or a marriage guru. That's not who I am. I'm not a love guru. I am a man, a guy who failed in his marriage, saw his failure, and wanted to fix himself and help, fix others who were going through the same thing. So I went and got my master's in marriage and family counseling, hoping to help others that may have been in a similar situation that I was in when I was going through my divorce, in hopes to help prevent other couples go through divorce as well. We're about togetherness. Togetherness podcast is about promoting togetherness between a husband and a wife and helping you guys achieve togetherness. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can listen to the show. Hey, Jada, how's it going? Thank you so much, everybody in the room. Thank you again, everybody, also for watching on Facebook. There's a couple of ways that you can listen to this podcast after we air live. We are on Anchor, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes. What's the other one? Google. We're on all the major podcasting outlets. Those shows are uploaded Friday. So if you are in a position where you can't watch this now and you want to come back to it, you can watch it on Facebook. You can watch it on Get Vocal and on YouTube. Or you can listen to the podcast, okay? But just by searching Two-Getherness Podcast. Now, that's Togetherness with a TWO, not a TO. TWO-Getherness podcast or whatever. All right, thank you so much. Again, I really appreciate you guys. I'm excited. I have a wonderful guest, but before I introduce her, I do want to share a couple of ways that you can support this podcast, all right? Now, to support this podcast, you can go on my Patreon page. That's patreon.com/Andre D. Harrison. And you can give as little as $5 a month to help promote this podcast. You've been allowing me to come into your lives every week, and I appreciate that. And some financial help would make it happen even more. But regardless, this is my heart. I'm going to do it anyway. But I also know that some people are not in a position to help financially, and you can still offer support. And this is how: by sharing this podcast with as many people as you can, especially people who may be going through some struggles in their marriages and they just need some additional help. It's that easy, that simple. And now it's now March. Wedding season is approaching. And did you know that premarital counseling helped reduce divorce rates by 30%? That's 30%. In America, specifically America, over 50% of all marriages end in divorce. Premarital counseling will help prevent that by 30%. 30%. If you're in a position where you have not received premarital counseling yet and you would like to, just to help create the sense of togetherness in your union before the marriage, you can go to Togetherness Coaching, TWOGETHERNESS coaching.com, and I'll have information on there for you. Gabe, what's going on in the Get Vocal house? Everybody for watching on Facebook, I appreciate you guys. All right, now let's get into the topic of the day. A couple of years ago, I was able to see the service of this young lady who is all about marriage, all about relationships. She's not afraid to share her own experiences in hopes that others would grow through her experiences and receive healing and, in a sense, achieve togetherness in their marriage. And I am excited to have her on the show. She's a marriage consultant, a marriage coach. She helps couples all around the nation. And she's here with us tonight to talk about the effects of destructive relationship patterns in a marriage. It is my pleasure and my privilege to announce and introduce Miss Elbony Riggins to the Togetherness podcast with rapper Dre. Thank you so much for joining me. Appreciate
Thank you, Dre, for inviting me to the show. I'm so happy to be here. It's a pleasure to be a part of this and to have this conversation with you, because it's so needed today. Because, like you said, and people are all the time, but what do we do? How do we resolve it? How do we get to a place where, even if it is at the point where we have to go to the point of filing for a divorce, what's the next step? How do we recover? How do we heal? So I would love to have those conversations with people.
All right, thank you. So tell us a little bit about what you do, so that the audience, get an idea of who you are, what you do, and what you're about.
So I'm a relationship coach, and I'm going to share this part with you all about how I got to wanting to becoming a relationship coach. I started off at a very young age, very interested about relationships. I always had a desire to understand, why do people fall in and out of love with one another, right? So I was probably about the age of 8 years old. My parents separated at a very young age. I think I was about 5. I started questioning about, relationships. And so I began to just look at the family members. I looked at my mother and my father. They separated. I looked at my aunts, my grandparents, my uncle, and I saw the relationships that they had. And a lot of the relationships that were around me, that they were lasting. They were actually had a foundation that they were supporting one another. But on the outside of that, I saw other people in relationships that were just falling apart, and I didn't understand that. I just felt like, once you fall in love, you're supposed to stay in love. That was my ideal. But I saw that it wasn't true. I saw that hurting people hurt people, and I did understand that people don't love the same. And so I went on the journey where I wanted to just try to study and understand. And I began to question, and I began to just do research, and begin to have personal experiences with other people that will come to me and just ask me questions about their own personal relationship. And I began to find this place in my heart where I had a passion for it. And then myself too, getting married, I began to experience these life experiences about relationships and broken situations in relationships. And I just decided, what better place to be in to be able to see it, research it, talk to people. I mean, I love to delve into the elderly people, because they have a story to tell. And I learned a lot of foundational pieces from the elderly people that were in relationships for long terms, and the struggles that they went through, and the endurance that they had to put into their relationship to really make it work. So I just grew from that place of really wanting to just challenge myself to help people overcome and find their place of peace in their relationships, whether they're broken or they're trying to fight to stay together.
So let's delve into the topic. Okay. I know you have a lot of expertise in this area, and you've had the opportunity to talk to so many couples and help so many couples, right? And so I'll ask, is it common to say that destructive patterns in relationships is one of the biggest causes that would lead to divorce?
I think a lot of people can say that there are patterns in their relationships that really creates even the discussion of divorce. I think that it is true. I think it's some of the things that we are aware of, and some of the things we may not be aware of as individuals, that are destructive patterns that leads to divorce.
So so I know some of the things are very obvious, certain things that we're going to talk about tonight that are very obvious. But you know what? I didn't consider the things that aren't that obvious, like those things that we don't really consider could be destructive. What would be some of those things?
So let's just say this. When we're communicating with our partners, and we have things that we're struggling with, and we fail to communicate effectively about what it is that and we are not vulnerable. Sometimes people are not as vulnerable in their relationships, and I think that I'm not gonna, you can voice your opinion on this part more better than I can because you're from a male's perspective, but I think especially from a male's perspective, men are not as vocal and as emotional as women are. So a lot of times there may be struggles and they may not speak on them, and versus when you have a woman that's in a relationship, she's more emotional, and in turn she may not be aware of what's really the underlying issues, because we can be arguing in our relationships about one thing, but we know behind the scenes, beneath everything, there's so much more going on that is the real issue that we're not even discussing, right?
Yeah. So I will say this, and this may offer some insight. Now, this is a general statement that is that could be applied for the majority, maybe not all, but for the majority. There's something that you said about guys not opening up, men not opening up the way females do. And I think it's because of the roles in relationships, right? The female goes to her husband for protection, for comfort. The husband sometimes is afraid of becoming vulnerable because he's afraid that she will no longer see him as a protector. She may see him as, oh, he's just as weak as me. Then who am I supposed to go to for support? I think one of the things that would help wives receive more openness from their husbands is if they can constantly communicate to the husband that you can open up to me and I'm still going to see you as my protector. I'm still going to love you. I'm still going to respect you, because that's one of the things that most husbands fear, that they will lose respect for their spouse, lose respect from their families. So they bottle it up because they don't want to lose that respect. But if a wife was to say, you know, I believe in you and I want you to lean on me and you can tell me anything and I'm not going to look at you any less. I'm still going to respect you. I'm still going to honor you. I'm still going to see you as my protector. That may be one of the things that would help open up communication, especially if you're dealing with a man who just doesn't want to communicate.
Correct. And I think it comes from a place of trust too, because I feel like somewhere in there, a man may have his walls up, but for whatever reason, if he's not opening himself up to her, then that's the place of where trust needs to be established. Or maybe he's just some people may have been raised in the family where they just were not taught or given that permission to open themselves up. So that's a condition that they have, right? Yeah. And as long as they have been conditioned that way, I can tell you all day that I'm here, I want to support you and everything. But sometimes it just takes them to have a made up mind that I'm willing to just go there with you, no matter how much she's willing to support him, no matter how much support that she's willing to show him and build that trust. He may not ever cases go there. That heart just hardened.
Yeah. Sorry. So this is the thing that I have. Everybody knows whenever I do this, I'm drinking coffee from my favorite coffee or tea. I said, this guy is an awesome dad. I got this from my co-teacher. She got me this for Christmas. So I'm loving this cup, and this is what I use for my podcast. So every now and then you'll see me do that just to show people that I'm drinking my coffee, and I like my mug. Thank you, Tiffany. I appreciate it. All right. How you doing, Miss Turner? How you feeling? Thank you so much for watching on Facebook. Make sure you guys leave comments if you have any questions, please. And we'll welcome you guys. Open up those that are watching on Get Vocal. If you want to grab a spot and ask a question, you're more than welcome to. I do want to get into some of the topics I wanted to discuss. However, if you're on Facebook, please leave a comment. I'll read it live on the air, and we'll address whatever questions you have. And so Ms. Turner says on Facebook, that is the truth, Elbony. So you got some people liking what you're saying. All right. So a couple of things that I wanted to discuss with you, and we'll just dialogue and go back and forth about some of these patterns that are destructive to a marriage. And the first one I wanted to talk about was selfishness, and how the pattern of selfishness could really, and it's not just in marriage, it's probably in life itself, but selfishness is one of those things that would cause destruction to a marriage. And I just wanted to hear some of your thoughts on that. If you've had any experience with others experiencing this kind of thing in their marriage, and how they can get through that.
I have definitely had conversations with many people about selfishness. I personally had experiences with selfishness in my personal marriage. I also think that it goes both ways. I'm not saying that, the man is the selfish one or the woman is the selfish. I think that both parties can be selfish, and it can create barriers in the relationship. And those destructive patterns that you can see over and over again. And one way of selfishness can affect the relationship is that you're not willing to have tough conversations. You're not giving, maybe one of the partners, whether it's the man or the woman, is not willing to have those tough conversations that need to be had in your relationship. You may be the avoider, or you may be the one that likes to, avoid conflict. But when you do that, are you really helping the marriage? Or are you creating a destructive pattern where you go on day after day, month after month, year after year, and you are leaving conversations that need to be had on the table, and you have no resolve to the issues that you're faced with, and you constantly have the same conflict that keeps recycling over and over and over, because you don't want to be honest with yourself to say, hey, this is just something that we must talk about, even though I don't want to talk about it, because it's going to cause more problems in our relationship.
But how do you approach this topic? Because I know me, right? Let's say if I try to do the best I can, right? And let's say, I want something for myself and I feel like I earned it, right?
Right.
Like I have a thing with technology, and I feel like I work hard, and if I want to buy myself a camera, gosh darn it, I'm buying myself a camera, right? How could, let's say, how can my future wife come and say, Andre, you're being selfish right now?
So let me ask you this, Andre.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about when it comes to, okay, I feel like I deserve this and I want this. Have you ever thought about it, that what were some of the conversations you had prior to that desire, that want? That's what makes the determining factor of how that decision needs to be made, right? So if you have a desire that you want to buy a camera, I can say, right, camera, I feel like I deserve it, that I should be able to buy myself a camera, right? For my partner to come and say, hey, that's being selfish, you shouldn't buy yourself the camera, I have to ask myself the question, why do they feel the way they feel at this moment, right? I've worked hard, I put money aside, I got the money, it's available, it's not hurting any other situations in the home. So why should they feel like I'm being selfish, right? Yeah. But you got to look at the big picture. What's really going on? Is it something that is lacking? Is it a conversation that you had that you both agreed on? Is it a compromise that has been made and you're stepping outside of that boundary and you're saying, hey, I want this camera? Forget about the conversation we had 2 weeks ago about, hey, we were not going to do any spending, right? Yeah. We didn't talk about that. So you got to understand that let's really be open and honest about why these type of conversations are being had. Is it something that we missed, that we need to go back and retract, and we need to think about it? Yeah, I have $600 or $800 sitting over here for this camera, but it's now the right time. Am I missing my commitment that I made, or am I really not being selfish? And is this person just being inconsiderate? So I think that that's the way to approach a conversation, right? Ask those questions. Ask some important questions like, why do you feel that I'm being selfish? Or I feel like I'm not being selfish at the moment. Can you please explain to me what's the selfish piece of it, and be willing to listen. Don't be on the defensive. I think a lot of times we get defensive when we're communicating, especially when it's things that we really want, but we need to be willing to hear as well.
Yeah. Miss Turner on Facebook says that she agrees with you, and she did it twice. And she also says selfishness in a relationship poisons the relationship between both male and female. And it definitely can. Definitely can. Absolutely. Very good. And so it seems like, and I'm pretty sure I'm right, communication is one of those things that would probably, positive communication will probably be the answer to a lot of these things we're going to talk about tonight.
Right.
All right. Next, I want to talk to you about, and this is all in the same bracket, mistrust, lies, and secrets.
Right.
Mistrust, lies, and secrets. How is that destructive to a marriage and a relationship? It's probably self-explanatory, but I think that some people may be the one lying, causing mistrust, harboring secrets, and they may need to hear this as they watch on Facebook or get vocal on YouTube or listening to the podcast. They may need to hear this and self-reflect. So what would you say to them who may be engaging in this that's causing destruction to their relationship and marriage?
Let me just say this. This is a big topic. And the first thing that everyone needs to understand, the moment you lead from a place of deceit, right? Just know that you have already stepped out of the realm, right? You've already stepped outside the realm. You've opened the gates up for so many things to happen that's going to cause damage, that's going to cause hurt, that's going to wound the relationship. And it's this right here. It's the heart that really, really matters at this moment. What do you think it would do to the heart of your partner to find out that you've done these things, you're doing these things, and you if you truly are wanting to keep your relationship, they really want to keep your relationship and healthy, loving, supportive relationship, right? If you're living in a place of deceit, you must ask yourself, what is my purpose? What is the next step for me? Because eventually the truth of the matter is going to come out, right? It never ends well when you're deceiving, because eventually the truth will come out and you will have to face it. So you must ask yourself, what is the outcome? What am I looking for? What am I trying to prove? And what is the real issue? The reason why I feel like I have to live in this place of deceit, lies, untruthfulness, and all that. And I just feel like that at the end of the day, we got to get our hearts right. It's nothing to do. And let's just be clear. Yeah. The things that we do as individuals have nothing to do with the other person. It really doesn't. It has everything to do with what's going on inside of you. The things that you feel that you need, the things that you feel that you don't need, the things that you want, the selfishness that you have, whatever the case may be. Everything goes back to you. And you have to determine, what is it that you really
there you go. We lost
trying to overcome, or what are you trying to
Yeah, but we have you back.
I see that my connection is breaking up. Yes. So I see we have somebody that joined us. Is that
I just had a quick question. By the way, my name's Buggy.
Buggy, what's up, bro?
What's up, bro? So I may have missed that part, but I wanted to know, can you touch on what causes that need for deceit? Why do people feel that need to deceive their partners?
Now, real quick, before you answer that, I just wanted to address Shannon, who wrote, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Your actions show me what you treasure. So stay far away from deceitful behavior. Good. Thank you for that. So go ahead, Elbony.
Right. So what really causes people to live in a place of deceitfulness? I think it's their own. I think it has a little bit to do with a little bit of everything. Okay. First, I would say, and you can talk on this, Andre, as well. Protection. I feel like some people feel like they have to deceive because they need a layer of protection for themselves, meaning that I'm doing these things over here because I feel the need to do these things. But at the same time, I'm not going to tell you the complete truth about what I'm doing, because it will cause you to think differently of me, or will cause you to react differently towards me. So I have to tell you half truth, or I have to defend myself because I want to protect myself from the wrong that I'm doing. Or I simply just don't want to acknowledge the fact that what I'm doing, I'm comfortable in what I'm doing. So I'm just going to do what I want to do. And I'm just going to allow you to think that I'm doing the opposite, right?
And I think you're absolutely right. And just to add to that, it's a wall that some people may think is protecting them, but really it's causing more hurt. It really is causing more hurt, not just for the person that's being deceived, but also to themselves. It's causing more hurt.
And why is it? And why is it causing? And I think it's important for us to understand why it's causing us hurt. Because at the end of the day, you have to live with that, right? You have to look at yourself in the mirror and realize that when you tell one lie, you cover up one thing, you got to keep doing it. You got to start living up to that standard. And that's too much. It's just really too much weight that you got to carry around trying to cover up all of your tracks that you put out there. So it's better to live in a place of honesty, in a place of peace, than to carry all this weight on your shoulders trying to live in this life that is not true. It's false, right? And what does it do to your spirit when you're walking in this place of dishonesty?
And Zanaya Turner wrote on Facebook, honesty is the best policy in relationships. If that, then there's no trust between both parties. True. Thank you for your comment.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like I'm finding that oftentimes through my own personal experience, and even when I was a bit younger, it almost seemed like I was very much afraid to, like, I think it's kind of what you're saying. I was very much afraid to hurt the other person because, you know, I assumed that in me experiencing, for example, like the situation I'm going through, by me being forthcoming, the possibility of just causing hurt on them, that itself, like, it would basically scare me to just being all the way honest. And like, I don't know if that's a normal thing, or, you know, do you speak on that?
Well, let me just say first, I think that it's a place of selfishness, to, even though you feel like you're protecting them, right? But at the end of the day, look at the hurt, even though, and some people believe that what they don't know don't hurt them, but the betrayal, at the end of the day, the betrayal is really the defining factor, because although you feel like you're protecting them by not telling them, but what if they find out in the interim all of that, how much damage you will have done? So why not just choose to do something different, right? If you feel that you have to betray, or if you feel like you have to hide, then what's the real issue in the relationship? Why do you feel that you need to do that? Maybe there's something there that you need to address. Maybe there's something that you're not truly satisfied with, or you don't really have a resolve within yourself that you need to work out.
You guys are familiar with attachment theory?
Right.
All right. So attachment theory is a theory that discusses a person's attachment style. All right. And there's a few attachment styles that we have. Everyone has an attachment style, and these attachment styles are developed. A lot of times it's developed based on the relationships that we've had with people from the time we were born, all right, until we became teenagers, and we developed intimate boyfriend-girlfriend relationships to our adults, and it developed what type of attachment style that we have, right? And that's one of those things. It sounds like somebody has poor attachment styles with people, or with somebody that they want to have a relationship with, but they keep doing things to not let the other person in. They want to be attached, but they have sort of, it's called an insecure attachment style. They're not secure and in themselves. So they don't open up completely to the person that they're with because they have a very poor attachment style. Yeah. So it sounds like that's what it sounds like.
So that leads you to some of the deceitful ways, or those destructive patterns.
Yep. Yeah. But, and that would probably lead now into communication. All right. So we talked about mistrust, lies, secrets, and now the lack of communication. All right. And this is something we talked briefly before about, that is a destructive pattern in relationships that break relationships, breaks marriages. That's lack of communication. And I guess we can probably segue right into that. How does that really break marriages?
Okay. So I'm going to say this. That communication piece, I mean, that right there is a marriage breaker, because it's so many things that we communicate that we don't even realize we're communicating. The communication is the reflective communication. You know, how we listen to what our partners are saying to know what we need to respond back to them, right? that vulnerable piece of when we're communicating, are we really truly sharing our true feelings with our partners? Are we really allowing them to understand what place we're coming from, and then are they reciprocating that back to, to us? Because if we're having all these problems in our relationships and we're not even sharing what our real issues are, how can we possibly fix our problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
How can we possibly fix it? And then we have all of these when we do communicate, we have these destructive patterns. We say things that have contempt, that hold contempt. We communicate in a way that's demising, that belittles our partners, and then we have this type of communication that's the stonewalling, it's judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
It's all things mixed into, and it's so many things that's not healthy in communication. Regardless if you feel like you're sharing your feelings, it's a way to even share your feelings to your partner where they don't feel as defensive when we're trying to share our feelings with our partners.
Yes.
So
I think that's a big part of making the other person feel safe and comfortable.
Correct.
To be able to have that conversation. Because some people, like, let's say you're with somebody and they're not non-confrontational to the point where it's a fault. They don't want to talk about anything because they're afraid of or confrontation.
Mm-hmm,
if, and yes, that's something that they have to deal with. I'm not saying that you need to deal with it as somebody who's married to somebody with issues dealing with confrontation. What I'm saying is you can approach it in a way where it can be discussed. You can have clear communication and they feel safe enough. Because a lot of people who are afraid of confrontation are afraid of not being understood. I'm not feeling like the other person is going to listen to what they have to say. So they would rather not deal with it, So, but that's something that they really do have to deal with through counseling or something that would help them become more confident in themselves, so that they don't see interaction that may not be all happy, butterflies and roses flying with cupids, shooting arrows and stuff. Like sometimes for things to come together, like I always say, this is a reoccurring thing that I say, sometimes for pieces to come together, there has to be some friction. Friction causes things to stick, things to stick. Like we go into these steeples, right? And when we see these beautiful stained glass windows, right? Mm-hmm. And these glasses are fused together. You know what fuses them together? Heat. Sometimes things are going to get hot. Sometimes communication will get hot, heavy. And even if it gets hot and heavy, if it gets to the hottest point, it's meant to bring people together, mold people together, weld people together so that they can become stronger.
And I want to add this piece in there. A lot of people think that the ideal thing to do is to avoid confrontation. But confrontation kind of pulls and helps you stick things together. I think that people need to be able to have confrontation because it helps them to really understand how strong they really are. When you have confrontation, it doesn't mean that you at a breaking point or you at your weakest point. Sometimes it's just you're going to have that confrontation, but you need to be able to have some healthy boundaries around the confrontation and know how to overcome it. Because if you never ever are faced with confrontation, then guess what? You can't get to the next level. You can't get to the next place that you need to get into your relationship. You just have this surface level conversations and surface level relationships where you're not really growing together. You need to be able to grow together and go to new higher heights and deeper depths in your relationship. And if you face that confrontation, that part where it makes you uncomfortable, then what are you doing, right?
Yeah, true.
What are you?
Yeah, and before we go any further, I want to just give some special mentions to people that are in Get Vocal. Camille, who just entered in. Shannon, who's been here from the beginning of the show. She wrote, safe spaces are the perfect ground for those conversations. Mutual understanding, compassion, and care for one another helps a great deal as well. Steph also wrote, most men conflate a woman's expressing her feelings with confrontation. All right, yeah, they do. That does happen. Then they get defensive and run. Very true. Shanita on Facebook. What's that?
Go ahead.
Shanita on Facebook wrote, realistically, most people lie. Small lie, big lie, and it's still a lie. There are levels to this. My husband might say, babe, do you want sushi for dinner? I might say yes when I really don't. LOL.
Right.
Lies happen and sometimes are even necessary, but it's a manipulative deceit that's a cause for concern. People who set out to hurt others are not true to themselves. True. My cousin Marilyn in Trinidad said hi. Hey, cuz, how you doing? Are you guys recovering after Carnival? Sad I couldn't be there this year. I probably will never be able to make it because of my schedule, but I hope you had a good time. I hope everybody is safe. Shanita also wrote, confrontation is good as long as the parties are respectful and fight fair.
Right.
And I think that's a big thing, fighting fair. Lenore Deval says, communication is so important and respect, and she wrote respect in all caps. Very true.
Yes. Yes. Positive communication. Positive. Yeah. The best way to communicate is be on a positive note. And if you're going to talk about problems, make sure that you bring solutions to the table. Just don't bring your problems and think that you're going to find a resolve. You have to bring some solutions. But I wanted to make a comment to one of the ladies. She was saying that when women sometimes share their feelings, sometimes the men get defenses and they run or whatever. But I want to challenge some of the women to make sure that when you are sharing your feelings, that you're not sharing your feelings in such a way that seems defensive to the male. You have to share your feelings in a way to make them feel like you are really opening up your heart to say, hey, I feel like I'm being judged. Not, I feel like you're judging me. But draw it back a little bit and just say, I feel. Talk about what you feel and don't force it back on what it is that they're doing. But you really want to just come from a place of just your own personal feelings, but try to eliminate what the action that they're doing to you from that, so that they can see that you're not judging them, or you're not trying to be, reflecting off of how they are actually showing up to make you feel a certain kind of way, because that may not be their intentions. And when we communicate and we're communicating that way, it can cause that type of feeling towards you to say, hey, you confrontational. I had to do that myself. I had to come from a place of changing up my words to get him to hear me, to get him to understand where I was coming from, because I was one of the ones that would say, I just feel like you don't understand me. I feel like you don't listen to me. But when I changed it, I got a better response. And that's all I'm saying. I started paying attention to becoming aware of what the way I was saying the things that I was saying. So instead of saying, I don't think you trust me, I say instead, I feel like I'm not being trusted, And isn't that more freeing? Don't you feel more free to hear if it's your spouse to say, I just feel like I'm not being trusted, than to say, I feel like you don't trust me? Which one sounds more freeing, right? It's just your feelings. That's all you need to do is communicate your feelings.
Yeah, Shanita wrote on Facebook, when you express how things make you feel, almost all men will be disarmed. And and it's how you say it. Like, when this happened, I felt so-and-so. A real man's going to look and say, wow, I need to go into protective mode and figure out how I can help my spouse, the woman I love, fix her feelings. How can I help repair how she's feeling? But at the same time, when it comes to communication, I don't think that men should go around expecting women not to express themselves passionately, because it's going to happen sometime. It's going to happen sometime. And so with that said, I need to say this to the gentlemen out there that are watching. Sometimes you got to stop taking things personal and stop allowing your pride to get the best of you. Because if your spouse is coming to you and you may have done something that hurt them, offended them, or whatever, instead of getting defensive, you guys got to listen and give opportunity for her to express herself passionately if necessary. And without getting pride built up inside of you and thinking, I'm a man, I'm not going to let no female talk to me this way. That's your woman. That's your wife. She should be able to speak to you passionately. And you should be able to listen with empathy to see how you can fix the situation. So we got to stop being softies and start listening without getting offended so easily. But that's just something I need my men out there to really grab on and catch. Yeah. Shannon wrote in on get vocal. Societal pressures and norms don't dare allow for them to show emotions, so we have to pull it out and then affirm their ego as not to see them as weak. I told the man I can stroke your lower parts. I got kids watching this too, and families maybe, so I can't say certain things. But or your ego, your choice. So you got a choice. Boogie wrote, "How do you make someone aware of their blind spots?" Before we do that, Steph wrote, "I can be walking on blank eggshells for your God blank egos." Yeah, and that's why I'm saying what I was. That's why I said what I said. I think men got to stop being so sensitive, but then it's also a catch-22 because censor will be censor will do better, but it's also a catch-22. Again, a lot of guys at this point will shut down and they won't say anything if they don't feel safe enough to say something. All right, but also men have to stop being so sensitive and be willing to allow their wives to share themselves passionately if need be. Zanaya wrote, most guys don't admit it. They think they wear the pants in the relationship to take control. And so communication is actually a big thing. And we can actually talk about communication all night long because that's a very big thing. And actually, like I said before, communication is one of those things that will probably touch every single topic I wanted to talk to you about. But we only have about 18 minutes left. And I have like 7 more topics that I wanted to just run down. So we're going to move on from the lack of communication, but we will get back to this. And maybe we'll do a whole show just on the lack of communication and its effect on marriage. And maybe have you back. Elbony? Maybe have you back on that. All right. So, but before we do that, can you answer the question about blind spots?
Okay. People want to know about how do you help people become aware of their blind spots?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I think that the only way we can help a person see their blind spot is that we have to acknowledge them when they happen, right? So if there's something that's happening, you have to be allowing yourself to be in a place where you can just acknowledge it and say, hey, can we talk about this at that moment? Can we talk about the fact, give me an example, Andre, a blind spot that maybe you weren't aware that you had or something like that. We all have them, right?
When I was driving, right, I went to go to the next lane and I had my blinker on and I went to turn. I almost got into an accident because I didn't check my blind spot. So my blind spot's like right over there somewhere, like all the time. Like now, blind spots would probably, like, let's say if I had a blind spot and I had to identify one, man, because it's hard because it takes a lot of deep self-reflection to figure out what your blind spot is. But I would say one of the blind spots I have may be, I don't know, self-confidence.
Okay.
Let's say I have I may appear like I'm a confident person, but I have a lot of insecurities. Okay. And so, and those are some things that may be reflective in a relationship that would cause that. Another blind spot could be jealousy. Yeah, very good. Example like jealousy, things like that. So how do we help expose that?
Right. So how do we? Okay. So like what you just said, some insecurities. I can share a personal experience that I had with my husband. He said to me, Elbony, he said, you have so much potential. He said, but you hide yourself, right? He said, you hide yourself. And he said, but I see you have so much potential. Now, me, to be honest with you, I see exactly what he was saying. But at that moment when he brought it up, I didn't know that he noticed it, right? But sometimes we don't know exactly what potential that other people see in us because those are our blind spots, right? Those are the things that we don't identify with. And because he pointed them out, and when he pointed them out, he came in a place of love. So that's the first. want to acknowledge someone's blind spot, come from a place of love, come from a place of peace, but also come from a place of building them up and adding value to them to help support them around whatever it is that you see as their blind spot, not allowing them to feel less than, not allowing them to feel like they missed the mark, but you want to support and hold them up and hold that space for them by simply acknowledging to say, you know what, I'm going to tell you the beautiful things about you. I'm going to tell you the positive things that I see. But I'm also going to help encourage you along the way about these things that I keep seeing that keep showing up. And let's talk about it. How do you feel? Have you even noticed it? And how can I support you in that? And if they don't want to have that conversation, then just say, you know, I notice some things that you do that kind of, you know, it kind of bothers me because this is something that I try to make it a point to you, but you don't ever want to acknowledge it. But I want to just share this with you. So I just think it's just the way our approach is, number one. I think it's the way we plan around how we need to support them and how we, just adding value to them and supporting them in that. I think that is the best way we can do it.
And there's nothing wrong with having a strategy when you address certain things. Like strategically, think about a strategy where you can go in, put some deposits in the love bank first. Let them and use that as a withdrawal to say, I noticed this, and maybe you guys hear that? Did you hear that?
I hear it.
All right, yeah. But use that as a way to pull, and then build. Tony had a question about, I know it's slightly off topic, but I'll read it. Any advice on how to deal with people in your life who won't communicate and use demeaning, degrading, and belittling behavior to control the destructive, controlling situation? Actually, I think Shannon just said it best. Cut them off and love them from afar. I think that's probably one of the better things.
Let's have a tough conversation here. Okay, cut them off and love them from afar. But wait a minute. You said they use belittling and what else did she say, Andre?
Belittling, destructive, controlling situation. So it's Okay,
so let's just say if it's your partner and you're living with this person, you got a family, been together for a long time, and this person just, come from this place of maybe hurt, grief, or whatever, and then they're having these types of conversations with you. I think that first of all, the best thing to do is that you need to acknowledge the fact that, okay, this is something that is happening to you, but it's not about you, right? It's not about you. It's all about how they're feeling about themselves. And the second thing is that you have to decide, do I deserve this? And you don't, right? So what are the boundaries that you are willing to set for yourself to say, hey, these types of words, these types of conversations I'm not willing to have in this manner. And they have to be willing to say, okay, yay or nay. And if they're not willing to say, hey, then what do we do next? The next step is to say, if we can't do it the respectful way, conversation, and I'm drawing the line, right?
Yeah.
I'm drawing the line. So I just think that there's a strategy even to that. You have to stand your ground. You have to keep reminding them that this is not acceptable. Every time you get ready to and go into a conversation and these types of conversations come up, there's your wall. Hey, this is something that we said we're not doing. We can't do this. And they got to know it because it's a train. It's like almost like you train a dog. A dog wants to lick everything. He wants to scratch and do all these things. And what do you tell the dog? No, we can't do that. No, right? So if it's been a condition, you have to uncondition them to understand that this is an unacceptable behavior. So you have to almost retrain them for what you've been allowing them to do in the beginning, right?
Yeah. Now, let me add some context to this. So people that are watching live on Facebook and listening on the podcast, I don't think Tony was speaking from the position of a husband and a wife.
Okay.
From my understanding, Tony's not married. So now if this was a wife and a husband, it'll be a different conversation. Now, and I say this all the time, breaking up is not a bad thing. If you're in that situation and you can identify it now, there is no need to stay in that relationship and continue going. especially if you addressed it and it's continuing to happen. It's a pattern. That pattern is destructive. At that point, cut him off. All right. It's okay. You both will be happier in the long run. But if it's continuous, or let's say it happens after the marriage, I would recommend going to speak to a professional, a counselor, a marriage coach. Elbony will give her information at the end of the show, and you could talk with her about this. But if you're in a situation where you're not married yet, and you're in a destructive pattern where communication is bad, and all that stuff is controlling, leave. It's okay. It's okay. And the problem is we become so invested with time, energy, emotions that when we recognize something isn't good for us, we're afraid to leave it. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
I truly agree.
Yeah.
I was looking at some of the comments, and people, I think Steph was saying that people are guilty to staying married to a fool. What I do, I am totally, and I answered that question earlier based on a marriage relationship, because I am for marriages. But at the same time, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I do believe that there is a such situation or time that you do grow apart, you do separate, that, you know, the relationship is so unhealthy that you can't do anything more but to separate. But in the interim of that, I do believe that make sure that you do the work, do everything that you can do to try to make the relationship work. And you can't change that person, but you dang sure can change your action, your reactions, and the way you show up in your relationship. And I can tell you from my own personal experience now, there's levels to your relationship. So you can fix one thing today, and tomorrow, next year, you'll be faced with different. But I can tell you from my own personal experience, I've been through infidelity. I've been through abuse. I've been through a lot of different things in my marriage early on. And there was a time that I had to separate. There was a time where I had to realize that there was things that I needed to adjust within my own self. And when I began to make those adjustments, a lot of those things that I was seeing change, he began to show up differently. And it was because he had a made up mind and he was willing to do the work. So if the partner that you're with, he's not willing, then there's a place where you have to go to the next steps. And that's what I agree with Mr. Andre here, saying that sometimes you do have to step outside of that.
Yeah. We only have like 7 more minutes left. So maybe we can get into something real quick. All right. Because LA brought it up, I wanted to talk about this. They asked a question, how long have you been married for? And then I'll get into the next topic and we'll talk 5 minutes. Go.
20 years.
20 years. Congratulations. 20 years is a milestone. All right. The next topic, jealousy. Now, I have a different view about jealousy because some people see jealousy only as a bad thing. But I also see positives with jealousy. And if done right, it can help protect the union. And let me explain. Okay, let me explain. Okay. People on Facebook are like, huh? What? We have feelings of jealousy. And sometimes if it's done right, jealousy is that antenna that could be raised where if my spouse is naive to something, I'm able to address it and bring it to their attention. All right. If I was completely non-jealous at all, I probably wouldn't see that. But if I go and visit my wife at work one day, and as I'm approaching, I see Tim, the copy guy, leaning over on the cubicle and saying, hey, blah, blah, blah. I can't see, but I can see his mannerisms. If I get closer, he's going to see me. Hey, how you doing? All right, I'll see you later. If he leaves right away, that's a red flag. All right. My jealous antennas is going up. If he's not going to engage in conversation with all 3 of us, right? All right, fine. Right. At that point, I can say, babe, I think he has a thing for you. She may say, no, we work together. Work husbands. Yes, Jada. Yo, that's a destructive pattern in marriages too. But she could say, no, he's just a copy guy. It's nothing, you know, we're friends. And then I can say it again, babe, just be careful. That's that type of jealousy that can help, you know, keep the relationship together and protect each other from infidelity. But then there's also that jealousy that's controlling, manipulative, abusive. Let's talk about that.
Okay, so woo, you give me all the hard ones to talk about. Abusive part. Yeah, so really, no, that's no problem. But the part about the jealousy that can be abusive and that can really challenge you in your relationships, I think that when your partner, let's just stop right here and let's go back. Why? I want to pose a question about, do you think that when your partner is jealous and abusive and controlling, could it not be so that they are just reflecting from their own stuff, right? Possibility, right? And sometimes that's what's happening. We may not realize that sometimes our partners are jealous or controlling because they already know the things and the actions that they are doing themselves. And then also they have been exposed to this through the opposite sex. And then when it comes to their own wives, or they want to be so overprotective because they know what they know what other people are doing. So they kind of tell on themselves at the same time, but on the other side of things, they may not be doing anything. They just may be a very insecure person. Why are they so insecure though? Why are they so? Maybe they have had a relationship where they were cheated on, or maybe in the past they did cheat on their partner before in a different relationship, and they have built all these insecurities, or they have seen patterns from childhood where, okay, my mama cheated on my dad, cheated on my mom, and they have all these imprints. They pattern their lives around that, and they pick up these habits that sometimes are not healthy. And so what do you do with it when you have an abusive, aggressive, jealous partner? Well, it's kind of hard to deal with, right? It's really kind of hard to deal with a partner that's abusive, jealous, because what it end up doing is that jealousy and that insecurity will make you feel less than. It will make you feel like you have to watch over everything that you're doing. You have to answer. You'll feel like a child in your own relationship. You'll feel like you're bound. You'll feel like you're not free. You was going to say something, Andre?
What J-Lo did was she took boxing classes and she wound up beating up that guy and defending herself. And enough. So that's how you deal with jealous people. You watch J-Lo's Enough, all right? Take boxing and kickboxing classes. You know, probably buy like, you know, deal with it.
You know, sometimes it will make you want to step outside of the relationship because you feel like you don't have the freedom to be who you are. You will have to answer to all these things, and it's almost like you have to be accountable for their own feelings, you know?
Yeah, and that's a heavy weight to carry.
It is. It's very heavy.
Yeah. Guys, it is now 1 minute to 9. I have to end because I'm trying to end at 9 o'clock. I am so sorry, but I think we're going to have to do a part 2 to this and talk about this more. And Elbony, if you would be so kind to join us on that so that we can continue this.
Yes.
So, all right, cool.
Yeah.
You going to say something?
No.
All right, cool. So before we go, and I really want everybody to listen to what Elbony is about to say. Can you share how we can reach you, your social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook? So because I know you have a lot of insight. And what she does is she has these marriage motivational messages that she shares almost every single day that I watch every day, and I share it out. So please listen to her right now and connect with her on social media. Go.
You all can find me at Elbony Riggins Relationship Coach. You can find me on Facebook in a Facebook group. In a Facebook group called Reclaim Your Marriage, Reclaim Marriages. You can also find Instagram at Elbony Riggins. I have a podcast, the Soulful Marriage Conversations podcast. Please join me on that podcast. Listen and share, review, rate and review us there. I would love to hear some feedback. I would love to have some conversations with people that would like to join me on the podcast. Well, so if you want to connect with me directly, you can send me an email at support@elbonyriggins.com.
All right. And like every week, I tell you guys how you can get in touch with me on Instagram at Andre_D_Harrison, Twitter at Andre D Harrison, all one word together. Facebook at theandre.d.harrison, and you can hit us up online at togethernesscoaching.com. I also have a YouTube channel with my sons. It's called Harrison Family Vlogs. Please go search it on YouTube. Click the subscribe button. Watch some of our videos. Click the bell notification so that it'll tell you when we upload new videos. I uploaded like 3 videos this week, so go check it out. I also have the Togetherness Marriage and Family YouTube page. Please search that out. And that's Togetherness with a TWO. Now, next Thursday, we will not be meeting here. That's because I have parent-teacher conferences with my students. So I will not be airing live next week. I'm sorry. But Jada, thank you so much for putting that information on Twitter. I'm going to copy and paste this and put this on Facebook and YouTube for everybody to there you go on Facebook. No, don't end. Cancel. I'm trying to send this. There we go. And so I have parent-teacher conferences next week, so I will not be able to air live. However, we will be airing live March 21st at 8 p.m. Thursday, March 21st, 8 p.m. And that discussion will be on finding your purpose before you start looking for a spouse. Finding your purpose before starting looking for a spouse. All right. And again, if you would like to support this financially, you can go on my Patreon page, patreon.com/Andre D. Harrison. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. I love and appreciate everyone that watched on Facebook, everyone that engaged on Facebook and had comments, everyone who get vocal, who engaged with us. Boogie, thank you so much for joining the conversation on YouTube. Thank you guys so much. This is the Togetherness Podcast. I am your host, Dre. This is Rap with Dre. I appreciate you. And again, until March 21st, we out. Peace.